Today I want to take a closer look at falling under the sword and shield. This is a technique that I have already spoken about, but today I will look more in detail at it, and I will already build upon the foundations that I have laid out in the previous videos. So we will explore what is it good for, what place does it have in the system, and so on. So, falling under, I have already interpreted it as this kind of defensive action, and we are told to always use it against a cut that is coming from above, which is almost always a half shield, but it also can be a force edge cut like this one. If it is coming from above, then it is defendable by falling under. And the starting point of falling under is always a position that has the sword on my left side. So prima custodia, that has the sword on my left side, priest special long point, and tertia custodia. These are the positions that should launch falling under against a half shield or against any attack from above. Now, what is the idea of falling under? In the previous video I have talked about the necessity to include the sword in the defense, which we are told in the manuscript several times. It is not good to defend only with a shield, you have to include also your sword in the defense. And falling under, in my opinion, is another way how to include the sword in the defense, a different way than I have talked about in the previous video. Let me start from a different angle now. The falling under technique is introduced to us very early in the manuscript. In the very first play, it is in fact the first defensive action that we are taught to, like at all. And the sequence that we are introduced to in the first play is like this. The attacker is doing a half shield, the defender is reacting with his falling under, then the attacker who has hit the defender's falling under is told to do a rebind and then kill the defender with shield slug. So this is the sequence that starts in the first play, and in fact it is repeated many times more. The first play advises to the attacker, after he has cut his half shield and he has hit the falling under of the opponent, he is then advised to do a rebind. And the manuscript says that this is the best solution to the situation, but the common fencers usually go for the thrust instead of the rebind. But this is bad, and you should always go for the rebind. So after the attacker, after hitting opponents falling under with his half shield, has two options. He can do the rebind as the priest says, or he can turn his half shield into a follow-up thrust that I have talked about in the previous video, as the common fencers do. And the priest is telling us that if he would go for the follow-up thrust, it would be bad for him. He should go for the rebind. So there is this recommendation for the attacker, but we are missing a recommendation for the defender, because it hints that if the attacker would go for the follow-up thrust, then he would get punished by the defender somehow. But we are not told how. The defender does not know what to do if the opponent, instead of rebind, goes for this thrust. So there is this information missing in the first play, and it is missing in every other play later. except for two plays that are very far in the manuscript, in the second half of the manuscript. And in fact, they are so far from the first play that it is hard to see that there is the connection. And I believe many previous interpreters missed this connection between these plays and the first play. But these plays are exactly about filling in these gaps, informational gaps from the first play. So these are two plays that follow one after another. And the first play is about, again, attacker cutting a half shield, the defender reacting with falling under, and now the attacker from half shield, instead of doing the rebind as he should according to the priest, instead of this, he is going for the follow-up thrust. So he reacts as if the opponent didn't do falling under, but as if the opponent did block just with a shield. And here we have the reaction, the correct reaction of the defender. The defender in this situation, after his falling under, should go for a thrust that looks like this. This thrust looks very similar to a Stichschlag. We have the shield that goes like on the other side, and we have the thrust that goes under the arm. So it looks very much like Stichschlag, but the name Stichschlag is not used in the play. So this seems to be the correct reaction of defender who reacts to the attacker who didn't go for a rebind as he should according to the priest. And the following play starts with the attacker who is attacking with this kind of false edge cut. I believe this is how I interpret the obsessio that it starts with. And this is kind of strange obsessio that in this play the attacker probably uses it as a trick. He wants to try if he can hit the opponent with an unexpected move. And the defender is told to defend exactly as he would against half shield, so again with falling under. But now the attacker was not prepared for any follow-up. He just tried to hit the opponent like this, and if it was blocked, he was not prepared for anything else. So after he is blocked, he does nothing more. And we have the play here that is telling to the defender that in this situation, after his falling under, he should again go for this kind of thrust. So again, the thrust that looks like Stichschlag, even though it is not called Stichschlag. And these plays are showing to us what is the follow-up that starts with falling under. How should we use the sword that we have added to our defense with this move? And we should use it, in fact, pretty aggressively. It is not any deflection of the opponent's sword or any getting into the bind and rebinding and whatever that I have talked about in the previous video. No, this time we are using the sword for attack. We have blocked the first cut of the opponent, and we are immediately going for the thrust. So the opponent cannot do his follow-up thrust, not because we are limiting his options, we are manipulating with his blade, no. He has to abandon his idea of follow-up thrust because he needs to defend himself. So this follow-up after half shield is pretty aggressive, and it is there to force the opponent to do something else, something different than he wanted to do. This also explains why the attacker from the first play is advised to go for the rebind after he has hit the falling under of the opponent. He should go for the rebind because the opponent will go for the thrust. So after you have hit the falling under of the opponent, there will be a thrust from the opponent, and the best defense against a thrust is a bind, rebind. You are taking the bind and you are working with the bind. because you have to. You cannot go for the follow-up thrust and kill the opponent as you wish, probably as an attacker, because you will be threatened earlier than you will be able to threaten the opponent. So this is why this follow-up from falling under forces the opponent to do the rebind. The rebind is not there because of the priest is saying that, but because you need to defend against the thrust. And this all also tells you something about the mindset of falling under. If you are doing falling under, you should be in a pretty aggressive mood. You are falling back probably with falling under. You are stepping back, you are hiding behind your sword and shield, but you are already thinking about your follow-up, because as soon as the opponent hits your sword and shield, you immediately go for the thrust. And that is what you are preparing for. You want to go for this thrust as fast as possible, to hit the opponent if possible. And this is why the opponent, again, needs to do the rebind as fast as possible. So the mindset of falling under seems to be pretty aggressive. And while you are doing your falling under, well, you are hiding behind your tools. But at the same time, you are bringing your sword very close to the opponent. So it does not need much to twist this position into a thrust, because you are already very close. So again, this is like very, very aggressive mindset. In fact, the follow-up thrust from falling under would probably be considered a riposte in nowadays terminology. So it can be considered as parry and riposte. It works like that. Now, how to do all this in practice? Well, after you do your falling under, I can see there are two possible openings that you can use for your follow-up thrust. So I was attacked and I have fallen under. Now there are two openings that I can use, but both openings will be more accessible if I step to the side. So I believe this step to the side is an important part of the follow-up. And now the first opening is here, above the opponent's arm, which is like the most beautiful opening ever, and I like that. But the problem is that if the opponent goes for the follow-up thrust, then he will defend my attempt to get this opening. So we are falling under. I am going for this opening, and the opponent just naturally defends. We will put shields away, half shield, and now I am going for the thrust, and the opponent goes for the follow-up thrust to me that will defend my thrust. So I like this upper opening. It is easier to access because it is closer to my sword, but it seems less useful than the second one. The other opening is below the opponent's arm, so here. And this opening is harder to access because I have to do this little half circle around the opponent's arm. But if I go for this opening, then if the opponent goes for the thrust, it doesn't help, I will still get him. So this lower opening seems to be better. So the action would look like this: falling under and then step to the side and go down. And here I will get my opponent. This lower opening seems to be better, even though I have to move the sword in slightly more sophisticated way, but it is harder to defend, so this is probably what they wanted to show. I have also noticed that it is better not to go forward, because you need a lot of space between you and the opponent, because there needs to be a space for your sword. And you may expect the attacker going forward against you, because he wants to go for the follow-up thrust. So you will probably want to keep your distance while doing this thrust for falling under. Maybe you will even step back a little bit, but certainly not go forward. So this is how I believe this technique should be done. So this was falling under, and the reason, the place that the falling under has in the manuscript.